Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Pertamanya minta maaf lama menunggu. Kami pun berlepas habis mesyuarat sebab mesyuarat itu banyak yang tertangguh-tangguh. Masa the last meeting was meeting on sifat berkenaan dengan negara-negara Asia Tenggara sama dengan Jepun dan Korea untuk kita berbincang tentang pembangunan semula di Palestin dan yang pastinya kita punya kegusaran berkenaan dengan keadaan di Palestin yang ada sekarang. Alhamdulillah kita telah pun selesai mesyuarat Menteri-Menteri luar Asean yang ke-58 ya. Ini adalah merupakan mesyuarat yang perlu kita lakukan untuk memulakan gerak kerja bagi persiapan mesyuarat sidang kemuncak ASEAN ke-47 yang akan diadakan pada 26 sampai 28 Oktober nanti. Jadi hasil daripada mesyuarat ini akan dibawa dan dikemukakan ke mesyuarat ketua-ketua negara pada bulan Oktober nanti. So, overview of the foreign ministers meeting over the past few days. We had 21 meetings involving ASEAN and its external partners and the fourth ministerial conference and cooperation among East Asian countries for Palestinian development, SIPAT tadi. Separately, I had 15 bilateral meetings with my counterparts from Algeria, from Australia, Bangladesh, Brunei Darussalam, Canada, China, Japan, New Zealand, Palestine, the Philippines, Switzerland, Turkey, United Kingdom, United States, and Uruguay. During all these meetings, we discussed strengthening bilateral relations and international issues of common concern. Dalam mesyuarat-mesyuarat itu banyak isu-isu yang kami bincangkan, terutamanya situasi di Myanmar. During the discussion on Myanmar, ASEAN ministers urgently call on all parties in Myanmar, in particular the SAC, to cease hostilities and violence, observe and respect ceasefires, as well as ensure unimpeded humanitarian access. This is in line with the decision of the 46th summit in May. The ministers continued to express support for the efforts of the Special Envoy for ASEAN Chair on Myanmar, Tan Sri Osman Hashim, in facilitating a peaceful resolution to the crisis. We also emphasized the importance of continuity in ASEAN approach to address the crisis. Malaysia expressed concern that the implementation of 5-point consensus on the ground is still lacking. We call on stakeholders to undertake concrete action in this regard. Out of the 5 points, 3 points fall on the stakeholders to implement. They are cessation of hostilities and violence. Number 2, inclusive dialogue involving all parties concerned. And number 3, humanitarian assistance to the people of Myanmar. The rest, the other 2 is on our part. That is appointment of the special envoy. And the last one is the favor. The assistance by all parties and the Secretary General assistant on this situation in Myanmar. Malaysia has consistently called on the SAC as the de facto party in power to show leadership and sincerity in committing towards peace and create a conducive environment for inclusive political dialogue. On the planned elections, Malaysia's position remains clear and consistent. I have said before that peace is the priority. This means pursuing inclusive dialogue. I have also said before, the election must be inclusive, free, fair, and transparent. They said they want to have an election. They can have election if it is inclusive and fair to everybody. But if it's a partial election, I don't think that is a good idea to have an election, early election this year. During the AMM retreat, I stressed to the Myanmar delegation that elections have to be inclusive. Everybody, all political parties, all stakeholders have to be able to participate. There is no point in having an election if it is not inclusive. I also stated that peace and cessation of hostilities must be a priority before elections. Any election held without prior inclusive dialogue and political agreement with all Myanmar stakeholders are likely to worsen the conflict and will not be seen as credible or legitimate. A lot of discussion on South China Sea. Malaysia underscored the importance of dialogue and diplomacy to preserve the South China Sea as the sea of peace, stability, and trade. Malaysia's position has always been consistent and clear. All disputes relating to the South China Sea must be resolved in accordance with universally recognized principles of international law, including the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or known as UNCLOS. We emphasize that need for the full and effective implementation of the 2002 Declaration on the Conduct of Parties, DOC. Malaysia is encouraged by the progress in the negotiation of the draft Code of Conduct in South China Sea and will continue supporting efforts towards its early conclusion. On SHONFEST, or Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon Free Zone Treaty, ASEAN foreign ministers expressed concern over the global security environment characterized by the development of new nuclear weapons, advancement of nuclear weapon system, and rise in nuclear weapons rhetoric. That makes it more imperative for the nuclear weapon state to sign and rectify the protocol to the SHONFEST Treaty. We welcome China's readiness to sign and ratify the SHONFEST Protocol without reservations, and the renewed interest by some nuclear weapon states to sign and ratify the protocol. ASEAN is resuming substantive discussion with the countries concerned on outstanding issues concerning the protocol. There are more positive developments. Timor-Leste is scheduled to accede to the SHONFEST Treaty in October this year at the 47th ASEAN Summit and related summit. This will expand the geographical scope of the treaty and strengthen security in Southeast Asia. On Gaza, there's a lot of every session we have Gaza, we have Myanmar, we have South China Sea. On Gaza, ASEAN foreign ministers expressed deep concern over the continued tensions in the Middle East. On Gaza, there were calls for immediate and permanent ceasefire, unhindered humanitarian access, and accountability for violence of international law. Malaysia condemned Israel's open genocide in Gaza, including mass starvation of children and babies, which is incomprehensible. Malaysia called for Israel to be held accountable for the countless violations of international law. On Israel's aggression against Iran, the ministers welcomed the ceasefire between Iran and Israel and urged that it be maintained. Malaysia called for the international community to consistently uphold the integrity of international laws or risk losing credibility. On Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, or TAC, the ministers reaffirmed the role of the TAC as a key instrument governing interstate relations in Southeast Asia and promoting regional peace and stability. On July 9, 2025, Algeria and Uruguay officially acceded to the TAC, marking the formal commitment to the principle of peaceful cooperation and regional harmony enshrined in the treaty. As of now, 57 countries have become parties of the TAC. On Timor-Leste's admission to ASEAN, following the decision of the 46th ASEAN Summit to admit Timor-Leste as 11 members of ASEAN, By the 47th ASEAN Summit, the ASEAN foreign ministers took note that work on the protocol on procedural steps are underway. The AMM also adopted the guidelines to facilitate Timor-Leste's accession to ASEAN legal instrument under the purview of the AMM. The AMM encouraged Timor-Leste to take action to accede to the relevant legal instruments as soon as possible. On geopolitical and geoeconomic developments, ASEAN foreign ministers urged major powers to manage their differences in a constructive and responsible manner, including through ASEAN-led mechanisms such as ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, or AOIP. To ensure that the region remains peaceful, stable, and prosperous, we underscored the importance of